Drive and Arrive Alive.
Do you have any traffic update? Tweet us at Capricorn FM or WhatsApp 082-654-2446 and hashtag Limpopo Traffic.
This lesson is proudly brought to you by Kagiso Trust in partnership with the Limpopo Department of Education and Capricorn FM. Kagiso Trust, overcoming poverty.
It's 5:05. Capricorn FM, Limpopo's hottest frequency. Just drive Dingo Money to Banda. Class is in session, right? I think it's the time we've all been waiting for. Our catch-up lessons, hashtag Kagiso Radio Teacher. And today's lesson is Agricultural Sciences, Term 1, Animal Nutrition. And joining us to share the lesson with us today, Kim Pasha, Panarnaka Momo Mutsangwasho, Raba Amorela, Reba Dumirisha Tobela, Lega Mama. Lighting microphone, Elena, Valukwa Lega Mama.
Rona le kae?
Aye, our Rona. Literally le kae, Lutan School se feng, and Loana King Selotlo Chanaka Sona Chichinal Hon.
Okay, Chuaki le botlokwa ka sekolong sa Motala otlhe. Ke tloba ke ruta bana ba rena a lesson ya agricultural sciences. Tloba re lebeletše what is called the alimentary canal of different farm animals in nutrition and digestion.
All right then. Marapogelena, ma'am.
Hi, grade 12 agricultural science learners. My name is Pasha M.A. Without any waste of time, let me welcome you to the agricultural sciences lesson. In this lesson, I'll be helping you prepare for your examination. So, let me first talk about the agricultural science examination papers that you need to familiarize yourself with. There are two papers, paper 1 and 2, whereby each of them is composed of 4 questions, and you need to spend 45 minutes on section A of each paper and 35 minutes on the other 3 questions. Our focus for today is on animal nutrition. We are going to deal with the structures of the alimentary canal of farm animals and digestion. In animal nutrition, you must be able to identify the major features of the alimentary canal, whether it belongs to fowl, pig, or cattle. Because sometimes in your examination paper, you may be given some diagrams of the alimentary canal. So you should quickly identify which animal it belongs to. In order for you to easily relate all other questions to that digestive system, you also need to be aware that in your examination paper, you may be requested to label these diagrams. And again, you should be able to describe what happens at each part of the digestive system. For example, the digestive activity or the processes, the enzymes involved, or how food is broken down, and what are the results or the final products of the broken food. Let me start by looking at the terminology that you are going to come across in this lesson. Remember, these terms are going to help you when answering the multiple choice questions. So try to practice and understand them. The first term, let's look at what is called abomasum. Abomasum is the true or the milk stomach of a ruminant. The anus as the end of the digestive system. Absorption being the movement of dissolved food into the cells of the body. Amino acids as the building blocks or the monomers of proteins. Amylase as the enzyme that convert starch to maltose. Remember, these enzymes are the chemicals that helps in the breaking down of food. And another term that you are going to come across is bile, as a yellowish, bitter, alkaline liquid made in the liver, and it emulsifies fats. And the other term, bolus, as the chewed rounded food mixed with saliva that get transported via peristalsis to the rumen. The cardiac sphincter, being a ring muscle controlling the movement of food into the stomach. We are still going to learn much about this. You need to know that during digestion, the stomach is closed on both sides. The first side at the top from the esophagus, and this area is closed by the cardiac sphincter, and at the bottom is closed by a pyloric sphincter. And then another term, that's chemical digestion, which involves the chemical reactions by digestive enzymes in the alimentary canal. Card as partly digested food from the first stomach of ruminant back to the mouth for further chewing. Again, we come across the term crop as the soft bag-like enlargement in the esophagus of a fowl, and diffusion as the movement of nutrients in the digestive system from a place of high concentration to a place of low concentration until a balance, or what is called an equilibrium, is reached. And the other term being digestion as the mechanical and chemical breaking down of food into smaller components that can be absorbed into a bloodstream. Emulsification. This is the breaking down of fats into small droplets. Enterokinase as another enzyme that converts trypsinogen to trypsin. Then now, I think you are still with me, my dear learners. As we move forward, let's look at these other terms. We have got fermentation as the chemical breakdown of substances by the microorganisms, which involves the release of heat. The four stomachs as the rumen, the reticulum, and the omasum of the ruminant. Lipase, this is another enzyme. This is another chemical. The enzyme involved in fat digestion. Lipofaction, being the process of breaking down fats into the fatty acids and glycerol by the enzymes. As we move on, let's look at these other terms. Mastication as the process of grinding food in the mouth. And mechanical digestion being the physical breakdown of food into smaller pieces. And within this digestion, let's look at the term non-ruminant or monogastric animals. These animals are those animals that have a simple stomach, one stomach, and cannot chew the cud. Another term, esophagus or the gullet, as the tube-like structure that leads from the back of the throat, which is also known as the pharynx, to the stomach. And another term, the omasum, which is the leaf-shaped fold inside third and smallest stomach of the ruminant. Another term as osmosis, the dilution of the high concentration side and increasing of the concentration of the low concentration side until the two sides are balanced, which is in conjunction with the process of diffusion. With diffusion, we have heard that the nutrients moves from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration up until equilibrium is reached. And this one is also referred to as passive absorption. Whilst this osmosis being the movement of these nutrients from a region of low concentration to a region of high concentration up until a balance is reached. But this is via the semi-permeable membranes, and it is said to be an active absorption of nutrients. Now, when moving forward, the term peristalsis as the wave-like contractions that move food down along the digestive system. The proventriculus as the true or the glandular stomach of a fowl. As alluded before, the stomach is closed at the bottom towards the small intestines by a pyloric sphincter. This is a ring muscle that controls digested food into the small intestines. Regurgitation, as the returning back of swallowed food into the mouth of these animals for further digestion. Reticulum, as the honeycomb-shaped second stomach of the ruminant. Retroperistalsis or reverse peristalsis being when food from the stomach is moved back to the mouth, and this one can also occur during vomiting. The rumen as the largest compartment of the ruminant stomach. Ruminant as animals that have a complex stomach that is divided into 4 chambers, and it can chew the cud. Within this terms, again, we come across the term rumination, which refers to the process of chewing the cud. And lastly, swallowing, which is the process in animal body that makes something pass from the mouth to the pharynx and into the esophagus. Now, let us move by looking at the parts of the alimentary canal. Generally, the alimentary canal is divided into 7 parts, namely mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, and the anus. Now, we are going to look at each of these parts. We are going to try to describe them. I think you are still with me here. Part number 1 is the mouth. This mouth is used for the intake of food, whereby the teeth chews and grind the food. The tongue mixes, tastes, and pushes the food towards the teeth. Part number 2 is the pharynx. This one, it is there for the passing of air and food. And what happens here is that during swallowing, breathing stops. And during breathing, swallowing stops. Now, part number 3 is the esophagus. This is a tube that extends from the pharynx to the stomach of each and every animal. It runs through the neck. And then part number 4 is the stomach being a muscular lined sac that receives the ingesta from the mouth. In the stomach, there are some enzymes that are secreted by the glands lining the wall of the stomach, pepsin and hydrochloric acid, which are collectively referred to as gastric juices. Part number 5, the small intestines, composed of 3 parts, the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. Most of digestion occurs in the duodenum. And on this duodenum, there are some accessory glands connected, namely the liver, which produces bile, and this bile emulsifies fats. And the pancreas, which produces pancreatic juice. And the enzymes that are mostly involved here comes from this accessory gland. But this accessory gland does not form part and parcel of the digestive system. No, they are just helping by pouring their secretions into the digestive system. Then the second part, as said before, the jejunum. The third, the ileum, which helps in the absorption of final products of digestion, known as the monomers. For example, the monomers of carbohydrate as glucose, the monomers of proteins as amino acids, fats as fatty acids, and glycerol. The sixth part being the large intestines, composed of 3 parts as the cecum, colon, and rectum. The cecum, in many monogastric animals, the cecum acts like a rumen. Why? Because of the microbial activities. These microbes live symbiotically with the animal. The large intestines is there for the absorption of water, storage of waste material before they can be pushed out through the anus. And lastly, the anus as the last part of the digestive system, which is used during defecation. Now, let's look at the differences between the 3 digestive systems of farm animals. We are going to look at the organ and the type of an animal as the ruminants or the polygastric animals, for example, cattle, sheep, and goats. And the non-ruminants or the monogastric animals, for example, pig, horses, and the fowls or the chicken. In the mouth, we see the mouth of ruminants and non-ruminants, the pigs and the cattle. There are lips, and inside the mouth there are teeth, and in the mouth of ruminants there is saliva with no salivary amylase. But in the mouth of the non-ruminants, there is saliva with a chemical by the name of salivary amylase. In case of fowls, we see a beak with no teeth and no salivary amylase. The esophagus, there's no crop on the esophagus of ruminants like cattle and non-ruminants like the pigs. But on fowls as monogastric animals, we see a crop, which is the extension on the esophagus. The stomach, ruminants have four stomachs, or the complex stomach, or they are polygastric, while the non-ruminants are having a single or one stomach. And in fowls, we come across the proventriculus and the gizzard. When coming to the large intestines, the pigs and cattle are having one cecum, and fowls are having two ceca, as the pear-shaped parts connected to the small intestines. As for the anus of a fowl is called a cloaca or a vent. The reason being that it is a urogenital system. Now, let me take this time and talk about ruminants. Ruminants are said to be polygastric. They are having 4 stomachs: 1 rumen, 2 reticulum, 3 omasum, 4 abomasum. Rumen being the largest part of the ruminant with papillae, where fermentation takes place under anaerobic condition with the normal temperature of 39 degrees Celsius. It is saturated with gases, and there is a constant movement of food. And this rumen functions during digestion as for the digestion of raffages and raffages into the volatile fatty acids, for the breaking down of proteins, fermentation of food, releasing of vitamin K and B complex, and it is a temporary storage of food. The reticulum, or the honeycomb, or the net stomach, this is where hard and foreign objects like nails, glass, wire, or plastic settles, and it stores microorganisms like the rumen. And the combination of the rumen and the reticulum is referred to as the reticular rumen. And the last one being the omasum, as the leaf-like stomach with many folds that looks like a book. The function being for the absorption of water. The abomasum, or the true stomach, this resembles a simple stomach of non-ruminants, and it is there for the secretion of gastric juices. Then now, let's move forward looking at digestion. Digestion in non-ruminants. We are going to look at the organs, the activity or the process that takes place in each of the organs, and the type of digestion and the adaptation. In the mouth of non-ruminants, the teeth are there for chewing and grinding of food. The tongue is there for mixing, tasting and swallowing of food, and the salivary glands are there for the secretion of saliva, which moistens the food, serves as a solvent. Saliva causes the oral cavity. The saliva again controls pH, and like I said before, inside the saliva of this non-ruminant, there is an enzyme by the name of salivary amylase. This salivary amylase helps to break down starch into maltose, which is a simple sugar. And the adaptation of this mouth is because there are teeth, tongue, and saliva. And the type of digestion is both mechanical and chemical digestion. As for the pharynx, food just passes by, no digestion, no digestive juices. As for the esophagus, is there for the passing of food through peristalsis, and reverse peristalsis may also occur when vomiting takes place. And The only different is when coming to the esophagus of the fowls. There is a crop which is there for as a storage and of food. It is there for softening and moistening of this food. And there are also some microorganisms which helps during fermentation and microbial digestion. And let's look in the stomach. The stomach is adapted to digestion because of the muscular walls and gastric juices like water, mucus, renin, pepsinogen as enzymes, hydrochloric acid. This hydrochloric acid is there as an antiseptic, neutralizes saliva, changes stomach pH to acids, breaks down sucrose to fructose and glucose. The type of digestion here is chemical digestion. The small intestines is adapted to digestion because it is long, has many folds, and has got the villi as finger-like protrusions, which increases the surface area of absorption. And the processes is the secretion of intestinal juices, absorption via diffusion and osmosis. And large intestines, we see the absorption of water, fermentation, storage of waste materials, formation of gases like methane and carbon dioxide. There is no digestion. At the anus, we have defecation, where waste products are excreted. The adaptation is that it is controlled by the sphincter muscles. Now, let's look at digestion in ruminants. In the mouth of ruminants, we come across chewing, grinding of food, and mixing, tasting, and swallowing of this food. These other activities are similar to the ones in non-ruminants. But the adaptation of these animals is that is the process of rumination, which involves ingestion, mastication, swallowing, regurgitation, and re-swallowing of food. The importance of this rumination being the breaking down of food into simpler components, and it again stimulates the flow of saliva. And the type of digestion here is mechanical digestion. At the pharynx, the passing of food and air like in non-ruminants. Esophagus, the passing of food through peristalsis, whereby reverse peristalsis or regurgitation may also occur when food is returned back into the mouth. In the stomach, we see digestion of cellulose by cellulitic enzyme cellulase, which is produced by microorganisms, and as the combination of the reticulorumen, which helps in the storage of microorganisms. These microorganisms helps in the synthesis of amino acids, hydrolysis proteins, synthesize vitamins K and B complex. And for better functioning of these microorganisms, they requires anaerobic environment, easily digestible carbohydrates, regular intake of food, mineral nutrients like sodium, copper, cobalt, and phosphorus, the presence of carbon dioxide, and the suitable pH. The type of digestion here is microbial digestion, which is performed by the rumen microorganisms as protozoa, bacteria, and fungi. The omasum is therefore grinding of food between the folds and for the absorption of water. Mechanical digestion takes place here. At the abomasum, the secretion of gastric juices, hydrochloric acids, and pepsin, chemical digestion happens. And what happens in the small intestines, large intestines, and anus of ruminants is similar to what happens in non-ruminants. And to wrap up my lesson, let me compare the adult ruminant stomach versus newborn calf. In adult ruminants, rumen, reticulum, and omasum are well developed. While in young ruminant, the rumen, reticulum, and omasum are still underdeveloped. That's the reason why during suckling, the milk moves through the esophageal groove to the abomasum. And lastly, when looking at the abomasum of adult ruminant, it's well developed with enzymic digestion, and in young ruminants, the abomasum is well developed and bigger than of an adult ruminant. And guys, let me pause here for a while.
Yes. So we're gonna be coming back. I am back there, grade 12. So we're going to be getting back to the agricultural sciences term 1. If you've got any questions, 08265424446 or Romela Jonaga WhatsApp, #Kagiso Radio Teachers.
Stay home. Capricorn FM will bring you closer to your loved ones during this lockdown. We are the pioneers of progress. News headlines on Capricorn FM.
Now, Cancer D, the Bembe District Municipality is encouraging communities to find alternative ways of putting together community funeral collections without gathering. Minister of Public Enterprises Praveen Gordhan says more than 20,000 aviation employees have been sent home. Some took unpaid leave while others were asked to continue to work without pay. And the City of Joburg Mayor Jeff Makubo says he is worried that the spread of COVID-19 is fast moving from the suburbs to the townships. Your final bulletin at 6 p.m.
Capricorn FM Sports. On and off the field, we've got you covered.
Khansela xipano xa Just Drive team ka sigimeta swa mitlangu ka siku ra namuntlha ku langutisa leswi landzelaka. In order to save up to 1.2 billion from the budget, SA Rugby confirmed this afternoon across the board pay cuts for players, staff, administrators as finer details of the industry financial impact plan were revealed. SA Rugby Provincial Union's players and rugby industry employees collectively designed and concluded this plan as the country remains on lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic, and this includes representations from SA Rugby, My Players, Sports Employees Unite, and the South African Rugby Employers Organization. Meanwhile, the cut-off for players and coaches who wished to cancel their current contracts under the plan happened midnight yesterday. And Limpopo MEC for Sports, Art and Culture Thandi Muraka says they want to distribute the provincial COVID-19 relief fund for athletes, artists, technical officials and coaches in a responsible way. Muraka spoke on Capricorn FM's On The Go breakfast earlier today, outlining how such funds can be accessed by the people of Limpopo in instances where the applicants are not registered. There are means which the department will be willing to explore in order to assist, including confirmations from the municipality or traditional authorities before they can be processed. And the MEC has made a call for athletes, artists, technical officials and coaches to apply for the fund, in which application started today, the 15th of May, and will close by the 19th of June.
The process of calling in for the application is starting from today until the 19th of June. So there won't be any interim payment that we are making up until that close of submission date as we have reached it. At the end of the day, the process must be free and fair, and we really need to be in a position for us to encourage our people that they need to do everything in line with the criteria, because these are public resources. We want to distribute them in a more responsible way.
And lastly, an official has warned that top Indian players Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma could be left stranded in pandemic-stricken Mumbai when senior players start training again. The Board of Control for Cricket in India could allow outdoor training as early as next week, when a further easing of the government's nationwide coronavirus lockdown is to start. But Mumbai, where national captain Kohli and batsman Sharma are based, is at the forefront of India's battle against the pandemic, and tough restrictions are expected to be maintained there. Mumbai has recorded almost 1,000 coronavirus deaths and accounts for more than a third of India's fatalities so far. And the number of new cases is still on the rise. While international cricket and the Indian Premier League have been high-profile sporting victims of the coronavirus, Kohli and other players have been posting pictures of their indoor training and other activities on social media during the lockdown. That's it for today. Tathlela hlangana nakambe mundzuku nemixo ku va nimtisela leswi nga ta va swi ri kumeleleni eka timbala ta mitlangu. Kasi for more updates, do follow us on Twitter at Capricorn FM, News for Capricorn FM Sports. I am Mahlatsi Mogale Riperile.
keeping you up to date with the latest sports news. Capricorn FM Sports. Welcome home to Limpopo's hottest frequency, the custodian of culture and heritage.
This lesson is proudly brought to you by Kagiso Trust in partnership with the Limpopo Department of Education and Capricorn FM. Kagiso Trust, overcoming poverty.
25 minutes heading to 6. Rasana me M.E. Pasha Kafa, teaching agricultural sciences, term 1. Kana kwiki kusharikana kwe mema kabuchandla so diatse na. All right, it's all good, mama. Lekano chela pele.
Okay. Guys, if you have questions regarding the alimentary canal and digestion, WhatsApp them on this number 082-654-2446. As we proceed, let's look at the possible examination questions. Let me proceed by giving you the possible questions that you may come across in your examination papers. But before I can do that, let me advise you to go Google the past question papers using the link search67.com. You will find previous question papers and their memoranda. And here are some of the possible questions based on the alimentary canal of farm animals and their expected answers. And most of the questions on this, based on this one, are based on the diagrams. But before answering, look carefully at the diagram. Identify the diagram by giving the name of that diagram. For example, the alimentary canal of a pig, or monogastric or non-ruminant, or the cow, or a fowl. So that you can easily relate all other questions to that digestive system. Here with me, I'm having a diagram of the digestive system. And that's question number 1. This diagram here is the digestive system. And the statement says, the diagram below shows the digestive system of a farm animal. As I've said before, you need to look carefully on the diagram so that you can easily identify it and look at the parts which needs labels. And when looking at this, the parts here, the labels here, we have got label A, which is pointed to the simple stomach. We have got label B, pointed to the esophagus. We have got label C, pointing to the small intestines. We have got label D, pointing to the large intestine, and label E to the anus. So you need to familiarize yourself with this diagram before you can try to answer the questions. Question 1.1 says, identify the type of farm animal shown in the diagram above. This carries 1 mark. And the expected answer there is non-ruminant or monogastric animal. Question 1.2. Refer to at least one structure in the diagram above to motivate the answer to question 1.1. This again carries 1 mark. And the expected answer here is monogastric or a simple stomach. Question 1.3 says, identify the part where each of the following occurs and write down only the letter A to E. As I've said before, you look at the diagram, you familiarize yourself with the diagram, meaning that you label the diagram before you can answer. Then question A here says, you identify the part where excretion takes place. Carries 1 mark. And when looking on the diagram, the part for excretion is the anus, and it is labeled E. And number B says, identify the part where absorption of amino acids takes place. It carries 1 mark. And I think you all know that absorption takes place in the small intestines. And when looking on the diagram, that small intestine is given the letter C. And the number C says, identify the part where main absorption of water takes place. And the further absorption of water takes place in the large intestines. So when looking at the diagram, the large intestine or the colon has been given the letter D, which is the answer to this question, and it also carries 1 mark. Question 1.4 says, give 2 reasons why the animal above cannot be fed roughages. Remember, the animal is a monogastric animal or a non-ruminant. Non-ruminant can't be able to digest cellulose. Then now, the answer to this one, it needs 2 answers. As the first answer being that since the animal is monogastric, it cannot digest roughage. Yes, because there are no cellulose digesting microbes. I'm done with this one. And when moving forward to another possible question that you may come across, here with me, I'm having a diagram with farm animal 1 and farm animal 2. On farm animal 1, we see the part given these are letters as A as the rumen, and B as the abomasum, and C as the colon, D as the crop, E as the proventriculus. The first question basing on this diagram says, which farm animal above from between farm animal 1 or farm animal 2 is a non-ruminant? It carries 1 mark. Yes, guys, I can see that you know the answer because it is the simplest one. Yes, the expected answer here is farm animal 2. And this question that follows is a follow-up question basing on that diagram again. It says, give 1 reason for the answer to question to the question above. It carries 1 mark. And the expected answer here must be the reason it does not have a complex stomach and it has a simple stomach because it is a non-ruminant. Yes. Another question says, indicate the type of feed which constitute the greatest percentage of the ration for farm animal 1. As alluded before, you have looked carefully, and as I've said, the diagram for farm animal 1 is of a ruminant. Then the question says, indicate the type of feed which constitute the greatest percentage of the ratio for farm animal 1. And the expected answer here is roughage because these ruminants are having the microorganisms in their rumen. Another question says, give 1 reason for the answer to question 2.2. This is a follow-up question. It carries 1 mark. Remember, where you are requested to give 1 reason, you need to give 1, not more than 1, because you will be wasting your time. And that reason is that roughage has a higher crude fiber or a higher cellulose content needed for the activity of the rumen microflora. Another question says, write down the letter A to E of the part that enables farm animal 1 to digest the type of feed in question 2.3. It carries 1 mark. And the letter is A. And that A is the rumen, which is the largest part. Another question says, explain how each of Part labeled D and E in farm animal 2 assist in the digestion of grain feed. Then the explanation here, this is a two-way answer question. It needs two answers for D and E. The reason being, part D helps to soften and moisten the grains, and part E contains the enzymes for digestion of grain feed. And that is all with regard to this diagram number 2. And the other question here is another diagram. And this diagram, as I've said before, I think now you are looking inside your textbooks or your study guides to verify what I'm saying here. Yes, this diagram is representing the alimentary canal of a non-ruminant, and that non-ruminant is a fowl or a chicken. The parts are labeled as A, the crop, B, the proventriculus, C, the gizzard, D, the small intestines, E, the pancreas, and F, S, the anus. Question number 1 says, identify parts A, D, and E. It carries 3 marks. By identification, you just spot. Yes, then A represents the crop, B, the proventriculus, and E, the pancreas. Remember, the pancreas just help by pouring its secretions into the duodenum. Then, question number 2 with regard to this digestive system of a fowl says, name 2 ways in which part C is adapted to perform its function. And as we look on this diagram, part C is the gizzard. The adaptation here is that as a stomach, it is having a muscular lining inside, and these muscular walls are thick, and they are there for grinding of feed. And again, the presence of the small stones helps during digestion. Remember, these small stones are found inside the gizzard. And I think when killing the fowls at home for when preparing our relish, I think you used to see this. Or if you don't remember yourself seeing them, ask your parents to buy a chicken so that you can kill it and try to examine. Another question says, identify part B and estimate the pH of its contents. And this carries 2 marks. 1 for identification and 2 for the estimation of the pH. When identifying the structure B, this is the expected answer. Structure B is the proventriculus or the true stomach or the glandular stomach. And the pH there is less than 7, which means that it is acidic. And that is all about this one. And again, you may come across a question basing on the process of rumination. Here with me, I see a diagram indicating the process of rumination. And we see the arrows. Some are pointing downward, some are pointing upwards, and some are again pointing downward through the omasum and the abomasum. And the first question says, identify the type of animal that has the stomach shown in the diagram above. The type of animal is the ruminant, for example, a sheep or a cattle or a goat. Question number 2 with regard to rumination, a diagram here says, identify the processes illustrated by arrows A, B, and C. This question carries 3 marks. When looking on the diagram, the arrows pointing down from the esophagus are representing are labeled A. They are pointing downward, meaning that food is moving into the stomach through peristalsis. And the other arrows labeled B are pointing upwards. Yes, meaning that now that food passes by the reticulum and going back into the mouth. And on the other hand of the omasum and the abomasum, we see the arrows pointing downward labeled C. And those arrows simply means that returned food is now re-swallowed back into the stomach. Then for identification of the processes, A is swallowing through peristalsis, B regurgitation or retroperistalsis, C re-swallowing or peristalsis. This question carries 3 marks. By just identifying, you score 3 marks, and there you are. Another question says, the process illustrated by arrow B has advantages for this farm animal. Justify this statement by stating 3 advantages, and you will score 3 marks. Then the advantages or the importance being, number 1, the forming of bolus. Number 2, it improves the mixing of food. Remember, the process number B, the process labeled B, is regurgitation or retroperistalsis. The food is turning back into the mouth for the formation of bolus, for the stimulation of saliva, and there in the mouth during this regurgitation, food is broken down mechanically into finer particles. And that is all with regard to the process of rumination. Another question with a diagram. And this diagram, when looking carefully at it, it is the diagram representing the digestive system of a non-ruminant or a monogastric animal. For example, a pig, a horse, and these fowls. The first question, okay, this diagram is labeled. We see part A as this part A is connected to part B, which is the liver. Part A is bile, and part C being bile duct, part D being the simple stomach, and part E being the pancreas. The first question says, indicate whether the farm animal in the diagram above is a ruminant or a non-ruminant. It carries 1 mark. And I can see you smiling there. It shows clearly that you know the answer. Yes. Then the answer here is non-ruminant. And you takes away the 1 mark with you. Another question with regard to this diagram says, give a reason for the answer to question to the question above. And this question also carries 1 mark. The reason being that the animal is monogastric, or is having a simple stomach, or is having 1 stomach. Another question says, state 2 functions of the digestive juice in A. When looking at the diagram, the digestive juice in A is bile. This bile is there for the emulsification of fats. It is an antiseptic, meaning that it kills germs. It neutralizes the stomach acid. And it also helps in the absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins as the A, D, E, and K, as the ADEC. It neutralizes the chymas coming from the stomach. It again activates lipase to break down fats. Bile salts encourages peristalsis in the alimentary canal, and it helps to improve the absorption of the fatty acids and glycerol. And again, it lubricates the alimentary canal. Any 2 answers will be fine. Any 2. Don't write more than 2. You will be wasting your time. And the last question, basing on this diagram, says, name the fat digesting enzyme in the digestive juice secreted by E. When looking at the part number E here, is the pancreas. And the pancreas is said to be pouring its secretions into the duodenum, since it is connected to that part of the small intestine. And it is there for the production of the pancreatic juices, as the enzymes pancreatic lipase and the pancreatic amylase. And I'm done with this diagram.
Excuse me, ma'am. I'm pretty sure so we got a question here. I'm not sure hello, ma'am. Need help with question 2.2. I just want to get question paper out challenger technology marake study the schematic representation below, which illustrates the digestion nutrients in the stomach and small intestines. So I guess graph A will be the stomach, and then graph B will be the small intestines.
They are invisible. I can't clearly see them. I forgot my spectacles.
No, Kuli, you can't go. No, not like a battery. Was good. Didn't you try to carry one? All right.
Okay, it says. The question says, start the schematic representation below, which illustrates the digestion of nutrients in the stomach and small intestines. Stomach, we see carcinogen protein. A, we see pepsin, and letter A. And we see casein, and letter B. We see small intestines, C, fat into fat and peptide, or C, amylase, E, erepsin, and D, glycerol, and F. Okay, it says, question 2.2.1 says, name the enzymes represented by A and E. Let me check again at A. And I think this enzyme is responsible for the breaking down of the protein. Yes, the enzymes responsible for the breaking down of the proteins. We see the proteolytic enzyme. This is the proteolytic enzyme. What is happening here? Okay, the enzyme at number A is a proteolytic enzyme. I think when looking at this diagram, we talk about the breaking down of the protein. It's an enzyme by the name of trypsin. And at number B, it's number E. Enzyme number E, breaks fat, and this enzyme responsible for the breaking down of fat is lipase.
All right, ma'am. Later, mutlumor kaitera ma'am. Rebetsi like nako, but retucha that question. Mutobu chimpuchichi or tachale another one. I show na kiona for chowe one or if it's out and one bele.
Okay.
Tachale puchiwe and then rataba phone la one bele of a reblation lebo na kwela rebetsi le rejana kuya kwena moabelo mar lebole le khono ofisha ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Give me M.E. Pasha for Agricultural Sciences Term 1. Thank you so much for sending through your questions. We will give you a call right now off air and solve some of the questions with you. 6 o'clock, myself and Itubanda have to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Progressive Talk.
You know, we spoke about a similar